Hey guys, so welcome to Abby's Corner. I am here with my husband Nash. He is the first person that I am interviewing, and we are here to sit in this corner and share stories. So I'm going to be asking Nash his most inspiring story, his craziest story, and just a few things that he has been working on recently. He is a travel and resort photographer, so he leads a very cool life. So let's go ahead and get started. Do you want to share us a little bit about yourself?
Well, you already said kind of ish what it is. But yeah, so for the last for almost 5 years now, I've been a travel photographer. More recently, in the last 3 or 4 years, I started honing in on resorts and travel experiences like cruise ships and tourism boards, that kind of stuff. So Abby, by default, gets to travel on a lot of them. She helps me out quite a bit, which is awesome.
So much fun.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool because we have the ability to not only shoot these places, but also experience a lot of really interesting things, as I'm sure you have seen if you follow her or me.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So Nash, if you could share with everybody one of your most inspiring stories that you have.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stories that could be in that genre, I guess, but I know a lot of your people are probably interested in the travel aspect of it, right? So how do you even start doing that? And it's funny because when you met me, you thought I was completely broke, kind of like a hobo, because I was riding on a scooter. I didn't even own a car. And now we're kind of traveling the world, shooting for luxury resorts that cost $1,000 plus a night. But I'll just kind of go into the backstory on how that happened. So I went to film school in Virginia at this school called Liberty, and about a month before I was about to graduate, I got an opportunity to work on a movie in Memphis. And the option was basically I could stay in school, or I could kind of leave school and work on this movie. And I wasn't getting paid anything. I was getting paid $25 a day. And that was per diem, basically just to cover, to make it feel like I was getting something. So anyways, went and worked on that movie, learned a ton of stuff, and drove back 10 hours just to walk across the stage and graduate, only to drive back there. Fast forward, the movie actually transferred to LA. We got to shoot in the studio that they did American Sniper and a lot of war movies, which is really cool. We got to stand where Mark Wahlberg stood, blew up cars, all kinds of fun stuff. Throughout that process, I wasn't getting paid anything. I was basically dead broke. And after that movie, I got on another 2 films. Again, wasn't paid very well on those either, but it was just enough to get by.
Yeah. So,
long story short, I ended up getting an opportunity. Somebody called me on the phone. I got connected through a mutual friend. I saw it was an 808 number, and 808 I just knew was Hawaii because I had a friend who had an 808 number. He wasn't even from Hawaii. He just had an 808 number because he thought it was cool. So that's the only reason I knew that 808 was Hawaii. So I pick up the phone, and at this point I had a job offer to work on a show called Step Up. It was Step Up 6 or whatever. Which you probably know what it is.
I know those movies, I love them.
Yeah. So it was Step Up 6 or something like that. There's so many of those movies. And they offered me a job for $400 a day, the most money I've ever made in my entire life. $400 a day to go be an electric rigging, basically hanging up lights for the movie, right? I was like, oh, this is sick. I can go to Atlanta. I can finally make a job for myself, whatever. And I get this 808 call. Answer the phone. They're like, hey, this is so-and-so. I'm the producer on Hawaii Five-0. Are you on island? At the time, I was at my parents' house I think it was in Georgia. And I was like, yeah, I'm on island. Completely lied. And yeah, which by the way, sometimes you just got to get the job. But I was like, yeah, I'm on island. And they're like, cool. Are you available on Friday? This was a Tuesday. I was like, yeah, I'll be there, or I'm available on Friday. What time? They're like 6 a.m. I was like, okay, cool. They were like, all right, so you good? You're gonna be here at 6 a.m. Friday? We can count on you. I was like, yep, I'll be there. Hang up the phone. It was a 30-second conversation. Wow. I start freaking out because this is Tuesday. I got to be in Hawaii on Friday. Never been to Hawaii in my life. And I was basically went down the stairs and told my parents, hey, I'm moving to Hawaii. I had no place to live. I had never been there before. I knew one person who was heading out there. We ended up living with a few other people that I knew from film school. But with 3 days notice, I decided to move here. And by the way, it wasn't a full-time job. I had 2 guaranteed days, which were less than half the price I was going to be making full-time on the other movie. But it was a God moment of hey, this is the opportunity. You got to take it, right?
Yeah.
So long story short, I ended up sleeping on the floor at a church. Was dead broke. I moved out here with $2,000, spent half of it on a scooter because I couldn't afford a car, and basically just was scrapping and taking any opportunity I possibly could, any shoot, whatever. And then through doing that, through building up connections, through building up an audience on Instagram, this was like 2017, 2018 time, and just really being scrappy and being consistent, like posting every single day, shooting every single day, reaching out to brands, getting denied, failing, basically feeling like I couldn't do it because like I'm just starting, like I don't know anything about this. So going from that point to eventually growing it, and at this basically to today, we've shot with Westin, we've shot with Marriott, we've shot with Four Seasons, with Sandals Resorts, with Royal Caribbean, like all these different places, and it's only because of the consistency of just doing the thing that is like so obvious, like for me, right? So obvious, like just practice shooting, reach out to brands, you'll get better. But a lot of people don't do that. So if anything is like the inspiring aspect of it is just like the consistency of it. It's not necessarily fun all the time, but it's just like mandatory. And if you do something consistently for a long enough period of time, it's like inevitable that you're gonna get good at it eventually. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Very inspiring. It's cool that I've also, like, when I met you 3 years ago, I've seen how consistency really pays off in doing that. And sometimes it sounds so simple to stay like so consistent, but it's actually really hard. And I've seen, like, I mean, you grow so much and work with these massive brands, so that is super encouraging and inspiring. Yeah,
and just for people watching, Abby actually met me about a month before I did my first, like, quote-unquote big break job.
I waltzed in at the perfect moment.
Yeah, literally at the perfect moment. Because I had actually worked with, like, Royal Caribbean, and I worked with, like, some tourism boards and stuff before that, but I had never worked with a high-end hotel. So Abby meets me in October. Well, you met me earlier than that, but we started dating, like, start of November. And within a month, we had the first opportunity to shoot for the Westin on the Big Island, which was incredible, like one of the best trips that we've done, even to this date, and basically has gone from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool, very inspiring. Is there anything else encouraging that you want to share before we move on to other stories that you have?
Yeah, I mean, if you're feeling discouraged, if you're feeling like you are being consistent but you're not seeing the results that you want to see, just understand that consistency is literally the only way to succeed. If you're not doing the same thing, even though it's boring, even though it's monotonous, even though you feel like it's not going anywhere, if you're not doing that every single day, and even if you're like, taking off weeks or off months, or like, hey, this isn't gonna work, you have to be consistent. And if you're not, it's just not gonna work for you. But the thing is, if you are, then the results are like, beyond anything you could possibly think of. Yeah. And it's literally just being consistent. So
yeah, absolutely. You're a great testimony to that, obviously. So now I'm gonna ask Nash, one of your most crazy stories that you have. It could be scary, it could be creepy, it could be like a God moment, or just something bizarre that you've witnessed. You can share one or however many you want. I'm here in my corner, ready to listen.
Yeah, so I mean, given the nature of like what we do, there's so many like crazy, bizarre, wild stories, so many like coincidental things that happen. This was about, let's see, 2 or 3 months after we started dating. My Christmas present was to bring her to the Bahamas, so we went to this small island called Eleuthera, which is, you can literally only get there by, not a seaplane, but like a little puddle jumper type of plane that has like, 10 seats on it, and it only runs like 3 times a week. So you really have to make sure that like you're there for it, because if you miss it, then you're gonna have to wait like multiple days, right? So we fly into Nassau, which is the main airport, and then stay there a few days, then fly to Eleuthera, where we were gonna shoot for a resort, and we were gonna hang out and have fun, whatever. Okay, the plan after going there was I was gonna go to the Philippines for, just for fun for like 2 weeks. Okay, so this was February of 2020. This was before the old C word happened. This is February 2020.
Yeah.
Okay, so we go to Eleuthera, We stay there for like 4 days or whatever, have a blast, have a great time. And like I said, the plane only leaves on certain days. So so we had to come back on this certain day, and if we missed it, we would have to stay in Eleuthera another 2 days, which means I would miss my flight to the Philippines, which just wouldn't work out. So anyways, we get to the airport in Eleuthera, which is basically just a shack. And
did it have gravel runway? Or
not a gravel runway, but it had a gravel parking lot.
It was similar. Okay, it was close, yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely pretty pretty rugged.
Yes.
So anyways, we get there, and there's some people waiting. Usually we like to get to the airport like 2 hours early. This one was like, you could barely consider it an airport, so we showed up like, you know, whatever, 45 minutes early just to be safe. So we get there and check in, start looking at the clock. All right, we're supposed to leave in 15 minutes. Where's the plane? There's literally only one place for the plane to be, so if it's not there, like, it's not there. Like, it's pretty obvious that it's not there, right? So then 15 minutes goes by, and we're like, okay, well, we're supposed to be leaving right now, and like, there's no plane out there. Mind you, I had a pretty tight deadline that I had to be in Nassau at, I think it was like a 2-hour layover before heading to the Philippines. So I'm kind of starting to stress a little bit. So another probably half an hour goes by, and we're looking at the clock, we're like, what the heck? Like, literally, there's no plane out there. So then they kind of file us out on the outside of, basically on the runway. And we're all just waiting there for probably another half hour or so. Yeah. So at this point, there's like an hour between the time that it is now and when I am supposed to be leaving to go to the Philippines from Nassau. This flight is probably about 20 minutes. So I'm like, okay, maybe I can make this work. Finally, the plane comes in, they offload the people, we load our stuff on, and I'm like, okay, like, I'm gonna have maybe like 20 minutes to spare, and hopefully this is gonna work, right? So this is supposed to be a straight flight from Eleuthera to Nassau. That's what it was coming here. That's what they advertised on Google Flights. Well, apparently they decided to make their own rules, and instead of going straight from where we were, which was like Governor's Harbor or something, to Nassau, they decided to make a random stop at another town, which was about 30 miles south of where we were, on the same island of Eleuthera, just a different city.
Like a bus.
Like a Greyhound bus. Yeah. Right? And it didn't advertise that on Google Flights. No one mentioned it. I think somebody was just running late, or another plane didn't work, or whatever. Either way, we went about 20 minutes out of the way, landed, picked up some random people, and then flew back to Nassau. So at this point, I'm like, I'm definitely missing this flight. There is no shot that I'm going to make it. And of course, as soon as we land in Nassau, everyone has to like take off get their baggage down and like all that stuff. Yeah. And essentially, I was late for that Philippines flight, which was super annoying. Had to talk to the airline, and but you know, we were basically stuck in Bahamas and couldn't do anything. They didn't want to give us a hotel. We had to negotiate with them to end up getting the hotel, and they didn't give us our own hotel. We were stuck with some random people that we had just met like 5 minutes ago, and I just
in line, yeah,
like in line because they were in the same scenario that we were. And you know, the airline's just like, hey, you can stay with these people and we'll give you a taxi. And we're like, hey, whatever, like, it's already, what was it, like 6:37 at night. Yeah, we just need something to work. So we ended up having to buy new tickets, and at that point it was so expensive to fly to the Philippines because I had to re-buy a ticket from Nassau, Bahamas to the Philippines, which is literally halfway across the world. I was like, screw it, I'm not going to do this, like, it's way too expensive. I'm just going to fly home with Abby. Okay, this was probably one of the last days of February. Okay, fly home to Hawaii, and within a week, maybe less than a week, basically the entire world shut down, and including the Philippines. So, talk about a crazy God moment. If I were to fly to the Philippines like I was supposed to, if the plane wasn't late, then I would have been stuck in the Philippines for at least a few months, if not longer, because no one was allowed in or out of the Philippines. I wouldn't be able to go home. I would have no access to anything, basically. So it's just wild how that, like, seemingly inconvenient thing ended up being like a massive blessing in disguise. Yeah. And it was kind of like, as soon as the whole world shut down, that we realized, oh wow, that's wild.
Yeah. So, because you would have been over there for months.
Yeah, I mean, I know people that have been, not still, but that were stuck in different places in Asia for 8 months or whatever because they couldn't leave. So. Yeah.
Crazy story. And one of the things that, because I'm involved in this story, so one of the things I felt bad about was when we flew from Eleuthera to Nassau. We actually missed our plane by only a few minutes. And the reason is, I mean, it was, you know, we're already running late, but a reason is that I had a check bag. So I was the only one that had a checked bag, and so we had to go run and find it and then, you know, recheck it and everything. And we had just missed our flight, and Nash looked at me like, I felt so bad because I was like, I mean, honestly, probably the reason that we even missed that flight.
Which ended up working out, but for future reference, if you can avoid checking a bag, like, please, for whatever reason you possibly can, avoid checking a bag. Not only is it expensive, but it's also just like such a hassle when you have situations like that where they take longer than they should, and then you miss flights, and then it's just a mess. So,
yeah, I felt really bad about that, but it ended up working out, and I think that is a total like God story too, because it's just like, you know, it was an inconvenience at the time, but then yeah, you would have been over there for months, and we had just started dating at that point. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing those stories. That was amazing and very inspiring. And I want to ask, what have you, because you've been a little quiet on social media recently, what have you been working on? What have you been doing other than sitting in my corner?
Yes, well, I have been sitting on this bed, but
so you both live here.
Yeah. No, so it's funny because I talked about consistency and how I like the reason I built what I've built so far was due to like relentless consistency. I posted every single day for like 3.5, 4 years, without fail, like every single day. But yeah, I haven't posted in like a month, and there is a reason for that. So
working on something big.
Yeah. So basically, what I've realized is that there's so many creators or people that are very talented that want to create a lifestyle similar to like what we've created, right? But they don't know how. And really, I mean, maybe they do know how. I mean, from a basic level, it's like, what do? You reach out to a brand, you negotiate, you sell them on a certain content package, and then you go do the job, and everyone's happy, right? So you get paid, and they get content, essentially is what it is, right? From a basic level. But the thing is, most creators don't want the part of reaching out to people, don't want the part of negotiating, don't want the part of like doing sales calls. And most people, you know, unless you are trained in these kind of things, they don't really know even where to start, right? So I've kind of like taken the last month or a little bit over that to figure out, okay, so how can I make an education and or service that allows creators to do what they do best, which is it's create, right? And most creators, that's what they want to do. They don't want to be stuck on sales calls or stuck prospecting or whatever. True. So how do we basically allow them to do what they do best while taking the parts that are annoying or the parts that they don't like off their shoulders? But obviously that's important, so we still want to service them with it. So I've been like, okay, do I make a course? Like there's stuff out there like that, but it seems like that's not necessarily the best way for people. I mean, it works, but is it the best? Maybe not. So back in December, I did a workshop, which a lot of people really liked because it was more hands-on. People could ask questions. It was more tailored specific to them. So I was like, okay, cool. So how can I do that aspect of getting like the specific tailored to them, combined with like the education, combined with like making it as easy as possible. And basically what I came up with is a program that sources leads and contacts them for the people, has automatic autoresponders, basically takes all the pressure of contacting leads, following up with them, doing the sales calls, all that stuff off of the creator's shoulders so they can focus on what they do best. So basically we will do all the lead sourcing. We'll get people on the phone for you. You obviously, as a creator, would have to sell them, but the good thing is we're gonna have sales training that shows you exactly how to sell certain packages or certain content packages, which are based on prices and based on things that I personally sold myself and continue to do so. Because a lot of people are underselling themselves, and I hate to see it. So I don't want that anymore. So that's another reason that I created a calculator that is the most in-depth. Like I've seen some other content calculators, and it is so hard to find like if you just type into Google, how much should I charge for my photography? You can't find it. Like there's no information, or there's just generic information like, oh, you should charge $50 a photo, but it's like, why? Why should I charge that? So what I did is I've taken all the experience I've had in working with different clients and basically compiled it into a calculator where all you have to do is plug in numbers that you already know, and you should know pretty well, and it'll spit out exactly rates that you should do based on different content, based on different licensing structures, based on like if you want to post on your social media, how much you should charge for that, and it'll give you like real world rates that you can then go in the sales call and tell a client, and they won't, they'll be legitimate, and you'll be able to justify them, and I'll show you exactly how to do that. So anyways, that's kind of like the overview. Plus there's a software program beyond just the lead sourcing and stuff where you'll be able to handle all your client communication. So if you have Instagram DMs, if you have email follow-ups, if you have phone calls, whatever, that's all going to be contained in the same chat. So you can respond to your DMs and your email all in the same thing, and it'll automatically go to each. So you can manage it all from there. You can send invoices to clients. You can manage. Your clients can even have their own dashboard. So if you're working with a certain brand, you have a dashboard where you can have, like, say, your Dropbox and your invoices and your recurring invoices if you want to charge them every single month. You can set that up. And things like mood boards or scripts and all that stuff is in one single location. So you can manage basically your entire content business from one place. And essentially, I want that to be the only thing that you ever need. You don't need anything else for your content business. You don't need 15 different softwares. That's literally it. And yeah, that's what we've been working on.
Wow, that sounds absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
I know it's incredible because I've seen you build it, and I've seen the behind the scenes, and I can testify that it is actually incredible and so helpful too.
Yeah.
When is this going to be available?
So I can't give an exact date because it depends on the development aspect of it. The goal is within the next month for it to be at least in a beta stage that people will have access to, or at least kind of dripped out. So the calculator is like pretty much done at this point. Some of the other aspects are further along than others. So we're working on building that out. But at least from a drip stage, there'll be certain features that will be available within the next month or so.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds so incredible.
Yeah.
I've done, as you know, a little bit of brand work, and I have stepped back from it because that is like one of the biggest things that was discouraging to me, because like all of the emails and negotiations, and I was constantly like pulling you into the room to look at the computer, like, how do I respond to this? What do I charge? Whitelisting, do I do like a 3-month license or 6-month, or like what do I charge? And it just got so confusing and overwhelming to me that I actually stopped doing it. So I think this resonates, I'm sure, with a lot of creators.
Yeah, hopefully.
And they can get back to doing what they do best, which is actually create.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the world is really pushed by entrepreneurs and creatives. Yeah. So if we can source them with the tools to be able to do that, but also definitely try to get behind creators that are, coming out with inspiring messages, people like you.
Thank you.
Yeah, because the world needs more of that kind of stuff, and less negativity. Because when you look at social media, like a lot of it's the negative stuff. So how can we push against that and like really enable the people that are making a positive impact?
I love that. That's amazing. Very cool. I'm super excited for the next couple months as that rolls out. Yeah. It's going to help a lot of people, including myself. Awesome. Well, is there anything else in closing thoughts that you would like to share?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, if you want to follow me, my Instagram is @Nash Hagen. You can check it out. So when that launches, which I'm sure you'll put a link or something after, you'll be able to check that out. And all the resources you could possibly want to see about it are going to be on that link. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming into my corner.
It's also my corner because I live here.
Into the corner of our bedroom. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day of working on that. I know you've been working on calculations and formulas and all the behind the scenes, which has been so much work for you. So thank you so much for taking the time to come into our bedroom in the corner and sit on our bed and be the first person that I've ever interviewed. So thank you so much.
Bye from Abby's Corner.
What?